Welcome to Topper Talk, your number one Western Kentucky athletics podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Moffitt, and I'm joined by co-host Tyler Bailey. Hilltopper Nation, whether it's happening on the hill or on the road, grab those red towels, stand up and cheer, because it's up next on Topper Talk. All right, welcome back, and thank you for downloading and listening to another episode of the Topper Talk podcast. We are the official podcast of the Red Towel Trust Collective, and we are a member of the College Huddle podcast community. If you're not doing so already, be sure to give us a follow on all the social medias, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. And be sure to, rate, review, and comment on all of our episodes. We'd love to hear your feedback. Now, this podcast is sponsored by the Fireman Moving Company. They are the official moving company of WKU Athletics. Not only can they be trusted to move all the coaches in and out of Western, but they can move you anywhere nationwide. The Fireman Moving Company is owned and operated by firemen and is founded by WKU alumni. If you're looking to move sometime soon, give them a call at 270-791-1755 and get yourself a free quote, man. I promise you, they're the pros. They're good at it. They're going to make your life a lot easier. As always, I've got Tyler here with me, man. Tyler, you ready to dive into this week one preview?
Yeah, man, this right here, I've been, we've both been waiting on this. We've been doing the position breakdowns, waiting for week one. It's building up. Let's get into it.
Before we do that, though, I've got to ask, man, you announced the impending arrival of baby Reed months ago on this podcast. So what's the dad life like, man? How's little Reed doing? I know he's sleeping right now, but how's the new fatherhood life treating you?
Well, you remember college, how it was lack of sleep, you had to take care of some drunk people. Kind of the same thing. Living on caffeine, nicotine, and dreams right now. Reed is doing amazing though. Mama's doing great. It's been an awesome experience so far. And it's just whenever I look at him, man, it just fills my heart full of love. And it's something that I never thought I could experience before. But, dude, I'm so happy, so excited that Reed finally has made his appearance. And glad he's going to be here for the upcoming football season.
Yeah, eventually we're going to have a Reed guest appearance, I'm sure. And we're not always going to record late at night. Maybe one day we'll have one when he's not sleeping. We'll get a little Reed guest appearance. But
I will say, he is mama's boy so far. He loves his mama. Whenever I try to hold him, oh, gosh. He's good for a little bit, but then he starts crying and kicking. And as soon as he gets his mama back, he's out like a light. He's happy and content.
Yeah, I'm not sure that ever changes, buddy. I wish I could tell you it does, but that doesn't ever change for the most part. Great to hear it though, man. I'm happy for you all. I'm proud of you all, and looking forward to meeting the little guy eventually. I know it's still young and probably not wanting to get him out and about too much, but eventually we're going to cross paths at a WKU event. I have a feeling. Let's move forward. Before we jump into our week one preview, we need to jump into our Red Towel wrap up to get us caught up on all the WKU athletics we've missed since we last recorded. And of course, that segment, as always, is brought to us by Trent Bedding Company. Let's get a word from Trent.
Don't forget your headboards, pillows, and your sheets. We got everything you need for a good night's sleep. Number one on the same check, best of Bowling Green. All right. Hey!
Twin, full, queen, and king. Mattresses for anything. Come and pick it out and we can bring it to your house. Have you sleeping real good before the weekend's out. Trent Bedding. It's just like a mattress store. Hey.
That jingle, man. I tell you. All right, so jumping in first, some pro tops. Malachi Corley has been the highest graded rookie wide receiver in the NFL, according to PFF.
Yeah, Malachi's had a really good preseason so far. Came in with high expectations from us, obviously. Came in, had a good draft process, drafted early in the third round, first pick of the third round, and has developed a good connection with Aaron Rodgers. So obviously we have a good feeling that he's going to see the field some. Maybe he's a little sleeper fantasy pick if you're into that sort of thing, and maybe having your draft soon for the NFL upcoming season. So love to hear that from Malachi, man. Highest graded wide receiver or rookie wide receiver so far in the preseason.
Moving on, TJ Finley was named to the Reese's Senior Bowl watch list.
Yeah, I mean, awesome news for TJ. You know, it's a preseason watch list. They can add and or subtract to that list as the season goes along. But you know, the worst kept secret, as I call it in Bowling Green right now, is that TJ is the likely impending starter for the Alabama football game that we'll soon be previewing. They haven't announced it. They haven't leaked it out. But I think, you know, at this point, it's a foregone conclusion. But congratulations to TJ.
WKU basketball, they got a commitment from a local boy, Lawson Rice. He's a 6'6" senior from Butler County.
Yeah, right up the road. Always good to keep local kids and kind of that nearby radius. So, you know, 20 miles or so up the road in Butler County, committed here to Western. He was at team camp earlier in August, or maybe it was late July. Was at team camp and really impressed the staff and coaches. You know, I shared a clip that he had put up on social media where he blocked a kid on one end, then went coast to coast around the back and just, you know, finished he yammed on somebody's head on the other. So, very popular clip, very athletic kid, very smooth with the ball. You know, and I'm happy for him. I'm glad to have him on the hill next year. And you know, local talent, love to see it, and welcome to the Hill, Lawson.
Staying on the same track as basketball, the basketball team released their full non-conference schedule recently. Season tips with a revenge game at home on November the 4th versus Wichita State.
Yeah, we had been updating the non-conference schedule as it had been leaked out, you know, game by game. So there weren't really any surprises on the final product. You know, it's a really competitive schedule. Opening Wichita State, we have the return game with Murray. Obviously, a game with UK and their MTE, added Marshall to it. So just overall, just a really tough and competitive non-conference schedule. You know, not to mention the Michigan game close to Christmas time. So it's great competition. Should really have us battle tested and ready for Conference USA play. So definitely looking forward to the basketball season starting in November, and you know, obviously breaking down the roster and the schedule as that gets closer.
Sticking with basketball yet again, former Hilltopper player and pro top Rodney Howard, he had 16 points and 7 rebounds in his CSM Craiova debut.
Yeah, really happy for Rodney. Obviously was only here for 1 year, but had a big impact in his 1 year. Just his personality, his smile, just and the way he played on the floor, man. He was just an unforgettable player in only that 1 year. Real happy that he's getting a chance to go play pro somewhere. And quite a debut. He was a second leading scorer, 16 points and 7 rebounds. I mean, he's going to be a solid contributor for that team. So happy for him and excited to see what he does in the future.
WKU volleyball picked first in the Conference USA preseason poll. Kaylee Koch was voted as preseason Conference USA Player of the Year. Callie Bauer and Kennedy Cole were also selected to the All-Conference USA team.
Yeah, no surprise. I mean, WKU volleyball picked first in Conference USA. I believe New Mexico State was picked second, but it was pretty lopsided that Western was the resounding favorite there. It doesn't matter. It just seems like year after year, we graduate great players. We graduated Paige Briggs last year, and we're still returning. Kaylee Cox, who's the preseason player of the year. 2 years ago it was Lauren Matthews, and we returned Paige Briggs. So just Travis Hudson doesn't rebuild; he just reloads. And then congratulations also to Callie and Kennedy for being selected to the All CUSA team. And then speaking of Kaylee Cox, the CUSA Player of the Year, we also just had a chance to interview her. Just released that episode earlier this week. So if you haven't checked that out already, just a great insight, great interview. Just talking about this past season, how she got to the Hill and just maybe what to expect this coming year from the team and from the newcomers. So great interview. Came out the day before she got that accolade as Player of the Year in the preseason, but really happy for her and obviously excited for WKU volleyball, probably the best program on the Hill.
Well, because we about to stick with them. WKU volleyball is also ranked number 26 in the nation and receiving votes in the preseason AVCA rankings.
Yeah, I think they ended last season ranked number 22, if I recall correctly. So, I guess factoring in the loss of Paige Briggs, dropped them down a few notches and what to expect to begin this year. And they have quite a tough schedule. They have Tennessee right out the gate. They play UK, Marquette, Dayton, Illinois. They have a tough out of conference schedule before they get into conference play. So, we're going to find out real quick what they're made of, but obviously excited for them receiving votes and being just outside that top 25. Hopefully let's just go win some ball games and get into that top 25 officially.
WKU baseball announced a trio of exhibition games in October. On 10-6, they play Murray State. On 10-8, they play Team Ontario. And on 10-25, they have a game against Tennessee at Tennessee. So 3 good games, especially with the last one there against the P4 team.
Yeah, it's cool to have some, some fall ball here, some exhibition games. Murray State and Team Ontario, obviously at home, will be pretty cool if you have a chance to make it out. Hopefully the weather's still, not too chilly in there into October. Then, playing the national champions, Tennessee. I mean, that'll be a fun contest as well. So we know that the baseball team and program is on the rise. So, we'll get to see kind of what they're made of with the new look roster that we're going to have coming into this upcoming season.
WKU soccer won their first home match of the season. They won 4-0 over Union. Kaylee Myers led the way with 2 goals. So congratulations, WKU soccer, on winning there. Starting the season off right at home.
Yeah, fall sports are here. WKU soccer leads it off. They had an exhibition game, a week or 2 ago. That was a draw. I think it was 0-0 if I recall correctly. But then, first home match just the other night against Union, 4-0 win, convincing. Kayla Myers 2 goals. Always love to see that. Hopefully we're shaping up to have a really good season in soccer. I think they were 3rd last year in the standings, or picked 3rd preseason this year in the standings. So, let's go see. Let's shock some people, win some matches.
Moving on, WKU golf schedule has been released, and we're both excited to see Coach Gary and Katie Craig and the team back in action here this year.
Yeah, we've got a really solid team returning. Obviously rising senior Katie Craig, who's just been, absolutely tearing up tournaments all summer, and actually is competing right now in another one. We'll talk about that next. But yeah, she just has had a great summer. Won a lot of tournaments last year. Team won a lot of tournaments last year. She got to go play in the NCAA regionals. So really excited about this team coming back and possibly the noise that they can make in Conference USA.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you kind of alluded to it, Katie Craig. She's competing in the LPGA Q Series, and currently she is tied for 71st at 1 under in the 3rd round.
Yeah, Q school, man, that's a big deal. There's a lot of big time talent there. So she's there competing and trying to make a name for herself. And, eventually, after college golf, she's going to look to want to play pro, and that kind of, getting into the Q Series, Q school is kind of where that starts. So really happy and excited for her. And she had a rough first round. I think she shot a 78 in the first round. So to come back, and I think she's 9 shots off the lead right now. She shot a 67 in the 3rd round, if I recall correctly. So an 11 shot, improvement for the 3rd round, and she's just 9 off the lead. So, if she didn't have a little tumble there in the first round, which, it happens, golf is a tough sport, but, she's proving, every tournament she's in that she can compete with the best at any given time. So I'm happy for her. I'm proud of her, and I'm really excited to see what's going to come this upcoming season with her leading the charge for the Lady Topper golf team.
Man, it will be very exciting to watch. But with that said, that concludes the Red Towel Wrap-Up, brought to you by Trent Bedding Company here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Moff, back to you.
Yeah, man. Awesome Red Towel Wrap-Up as always. Good news, good info, just, all good stuff. And, fall sports, like we just said, with soccer and, soon to be football, are cranking up. And now we get to preview the week 1 game versus Alabama because it's finally here. We're recording Saturday, 8/24. Week 0 games have been played today. Been some upsets already and just good football. Glad it's back on. But now we get to talk about our game coming up this next Saturday, August 31st. We play in Tuscaloosa, Alabama versus the Crimson Tide of Alabama. They are ranked number 5 in the preseason polls. The game is scheduled for a 6 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. The Uno. All-time WKU is 0-3 versus Alabama, with our most recent matchup being back in 2016, which ended in a 38-10 loss. As we record, Alabama is currently a 31-point favorite to win. The over-under is set at 60.5, and the ESPN Power Index gives Alabama a 97.4% chance to win. So only 2.6% chance for WKU to go in there and pull an upset. Hey, why not us? Man, it happens. Let's find out. Let's lace them up. We put our pants on one leg at a time. Let's go find out. Now, obviously, this offseason has brought about a lot of change in Tuscaloosa. So we got one of our friends over at the College Huddle who represents the Alabama Crimson Tide to join us and talk about this upcoming game. So let's welcome Alex from the Alabama Factor to the show. All right, and now we're joined by Alex from the Bama Factor Podcast. Alex, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, I always appreciate y'all for having me, and I'm looking forward to just obviously talking about our matchup this weekend, and obviously just talking a little ball because it is officially back. So excited about it.
Week 1 is upon us. Week 0 was already exciting. Obviously, we got a lot of ball ahead of us with both of our seasons getting started. So before we dive into our matchup down in Tuscaloosa this coming Saturday, I guess, Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself and your podcast, how long you've been doing it. Obviously, you're a fellow member of the College Huddle community that we're both a part of, and that lends itself to these great collaborations. So tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've been doing this.
Yeah, so I actually started the Bama Factor page. This is coming up on my 4th season, but technically 3 years ago, started in the 2021 season, but went through that whole season, and obviously 22, 23, and now we're going into 24. Started on Instagram. I actually didn't start my podcast until the year after that, after the Texas game. Was kind of toying with the idea for a few months in the off season, and then finally, some of the followers really were kind of pushing for that. So started that in 22, and now this year have finally branched onto YouTube. So really excited about that. But total, this will be the 4th season that we've done the page. Also, I'm on Twitter as well. Have recently got into the TikTok trend, obviously, in March. So pretty much on every major platform, but Instagram and YouTube will be my 2 main ones, and Twitter, of course. I'm getting involved in Twitter. Just been really trying to make my page kind of separate from all the other Alabama pages. I'm in a very competitive market, so to speak. So, but I realized that a lot of the pages didn't tell their information through graphics, and I had that experience in Photoshop. So a lot of my posts are graphic related, whether it's any of the game day posts, the final score graphics, if guys win, players of the week or awards or anything like that. So really try to integrate a lot of those infographics to tell people, what I'm posting, kind of what they need to know. So, I've enjoyed it for the last 4 years, and this is going to be I think a good year, and I'm excited to bring the people what I've got. So.
Man, I feel that. I actually went on your Instagram and perused it a little bit. I gotta say, your graphics and your posts are really good.
I appreciate it.
But let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? So all of a sudden, Saban retires last year. Been there 17 years. He's arguably one of the GOATs. He's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. Overall record at Bama 201-29. What was the reaction in some of the Bama circles, and was it just as surprising to y'all that he retired?
So I know my personal reaction when he retired. I was at work, and every year, at least for the last, and I told Steven the other night our show. I told him, I said, it every year, you see the hoax, oh, Saban's hanging it up. Saban's going to retire, Saban to retire at the end of the year. And you see that every year, but, it was never true. Even Saban addressed him like, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not doing this. But I saw that again. I was like, oh, it's nothing. But then when I kind of searched it and, I did a little independent research. I was sitting at my desk and it says per Chris Lowe, ESPN. And I'm like, Chris Lowe and Nick Saban are literally best friends. And I'm like, I think this has some validity behind it. So I was sitting there, and then sure enough, as I'm sitting there getting ready to call my dad and tell him, it pops up ESPN, legendary head coach Nick Saban is retiring. And I'm like, so the reaction at first, it was a little surprising. And seeing that, all over Instagram, the post went up immediately. I mean, it just, as soon as you scroll into Instagram and Twitter and everything, that was just what every single post was. I mean, other schools. I mean, I've never seen all these other schools, post about one coach hanging it up. I mean, and so it was definitely shocking to say the least, but I thought he had 2 to 3 years left at least, but understood, the weeks after that when he came out and said the reason that he decided to hang it up. Obviously, I love to see him enjoying, his retirement now. I love to see him as part of the media. I loved him on game day this past Saturday. It just so now you kind of get to see him have, a little bit of fun. He's deserved it. I mean, he earned it. And now to get to see him be like a media personality from here on out is going to be really interesting. But yeah, and then as far as the reaction in the circles of the Bama pages, we have a group chat with all the Bama pages on Instagram, and being one of the larger ones, a lot of people wanted to hear my original thoughts, so I went live on Instagram, and the lives usually come in between 200-300 people watching. When I got on, it went from like 50 to 200 to 1,000 to 3,000 because people were wondering what I thought. And so I was like, yeah. And then I had all these comments saying, why, what happened? Like, oh man, what are we going to do? And, but yeah, that was an interesting day. But we all knew the day was coming. I've honestly been preparing for it probably since about 2020 when he won his last one. I was kind of preparing for it within the next 3 to 4 years anyway. So I said, I think he's got 3 to 4 left. And, so yeah, it stunk, but I mean, I said, we all knew this day had to come. So, I mean, and it did. So, and we got past it. So,
yeah. So, as that initial shock, kind of wore off, and then, you all went to the coaching search process, I guess talk to us about, what that process was like from your point of view. Were there any other names or candidates that you were hearing floating out there before Kalen DeBoer was officially hired? And then what was your reaction when Kalen was officially announced as that hire for the next head coach at Alabama?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked this question because this is one I want to talk about because there was a lot of misinformation that got spread in our coaching search. So the first name that came up, obviously Vegas, they released the odds of the next Alabama head coach. And, all the people started talking, who do you replace? Who do you get to replace him? And, people started floating the name, the first one was Sweeney because, he played at Alabama. And personally, I didn't want him because, he doesn't utilize the transfer portal. I mean, yeah, he's old school. That's great. But, I mean, his coaching tactic is kind of starting to wear off on these guys. I mean, Clemson's kind of returning back to what they should be. And, they don't have a Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence guy anymore. So I didn't want Sweeney. And to tell you the truth, I didn't want Kiffin. And I don't think Saban did either. As a matter of fact, I heard weeks after that they actually suggested Kiffin. And, Saban talked to Greg Byrne about, who the coach should be. And he had a huge hand in the hiring of our head coach. And his exact words was an expletive. And he said, blank no on Kiffin. Because, I mean, he worked with Kiffin, and I think Kiffin's a good coach. But, I mean, I think just by kind of what he did in 2016, leaving us the way he did, and, he took a phone call from FAU right before the SEC championship game. I mean, and Saban said, wait to the end of the season. So that kind of rubbed Saban the wrong way. Still is a good friend of him. But and then the two that you really heard was Steve Sarkisian from Texas and Dan Lanning from Oregon. Because obviously Lanning was a grad assistant at Bama. then went to Georgia. Obviously, Steve Sarkisian coached at Bama in 2 stints as well. So those are the names you heard. But the thing was, everybody said Dan Lanning is going to be the next head coach at Alabama. And they said he's already offered. Like, he said he's on a plane to Tuscaloosa right now. He's interviewing. And the fact that they talked about that, I didn't buy it because I'm like, I don't think it would do that. But then Greg Burns sits the players down 24 hours after Saban retires and says, give me 72 hours and I'll have you coach. And Greg Burns, he did the same thing with Nate Oates. He's done the same thing with our baseball coach. So I had full faith in Greg Burns. So what actually happened, if you read the articles and everything, as soon as Saban announced that he was going to hang it up, he called Greg Burns. Burns was at the Tuscaloosa airport waiting on his response because Saban said up until the moment that he actually told the players, he was going back and forth on whether he was actually going to go through with it. And as soon as he told him, he was on a plane to Washington instantly. And he said he had his eyes on Kalen DeBoer for about the last 4 years because he said he had saw what he had done early in his career, saw what he did at Indiana. Then when he came to Washington, really started watching him. And he and Saban actually were like roommates at a coaches conference 2 summers ago. And Saban had nothing but high praise for him and said, this guy's a good coach. And I think when you see what he did at Washington the last 2 years, when you come in from a 3-9 program who lost to Montana State at home, and then you win 11 games your first year and you beat Steve Sarkisian in the Alamo Bowl, and then the next year you're picked to finish, 8th or 9th in your conference. Then you win your conference. You beat Oregon twice. You beat USC again. And then you go to the college football playoff and beat Steve Sarkisian again. And you fall just short in the championship game with a bunch of 3-stars. And then you put 14 guys in the NFL and 4 guys in the first round. I mean, I think that's the guy you can get for your coach. So when Kalen DeBoer was hired, when I was really hearing him, I liked the hire a lot. I don't think you could have got anybody better. Like, you just lose a national championship winning coach, a 7-time championship coach. So you go get the guy who just played in it. I mean, I don't know how you can get any better than that. And the bigger ones that I did find out, it was down to between him and Mike Norvell. I'm glad we didn't go the other way because of what happened Saturday. So, but I like the hire. I'm excited about what he's brought, the staff he's brought together. I feel like the staff, I talked about this on my show, I feel like the staff he brought together is just incredible. I feel like we needed a staff overhaul because, we lose coordinators every year. But overall, I think it was an A+ hire. I'm excited to see what he does. And obviously, this is a new era. We had to do the same thing with Saban. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I'm excited about it.
Well, you kind of answered my next question with that last answer, but because I was going to say, what was your thoughts on the complete first staff hiring? But also, did you realize there is WKU ties? Jamarcus Shepard, Brian Ellis, and Nick Sheridan, and it just seems like Saban always did bring a good job of bringing in head coaches that needed some rehab.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. And just with what Kalen brought in, because I feel like, I told Steven the other night, I feel like, the last couple of years, really where we've been lacking, really some of the development, and not that our guys weren't good, not that we weren't talented, but just the coaching on that side was the wide receiver position. And, really since, Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, we had Jameson Williams and John Mechie, but, after that, we just haven't had those couple of guys who have done it, and we just haven't had that development like we used to have. But I think with Jamarcus Shepard, obviously putting, 3 guys in the draft this past year, 2 in the first round, I think with what he can do. And I even looked up his resume in Western Kentucky. I mean, the guy wasn't a no slouch, like as a wide receiver coach there either. I mean, when you can do things at smaller schools like that and you can put guys in the NFL that, probably without a coach like that, they're probably not going to the NFL, or if they do, they're probably getting signed as a free agent to a practice squad. But if you can take 2- and 3-star talent and turn them into a 4- and 5-star talent in college, because that's why I don't put a whole lot of faith in stars anymore, because we've seen a lot of 5-stars more than you did 10, 15 years ago really be bust. And then you see these 2- and 3-stars come out and be first-round draft picks, because I think stars are just a way of saying, how do you play in high school? And that has to translate to college. And it doesn't always translate. You have to have a coaching staff who knows your strengths and, who can develop your weaknesses and who can do some of that. So I think overall, from overhauling it, I think the staff was good. keeping Freddie Roach and Robert Gillespie was huge for recruiting purposes, for team chemistry purposes, guys who trusted them, guys who were recruited by them, guys who already know the standard at Alabama. That was huge with them keeping those two and bringing in other guys. I mean, you bring in 3 former head coaches. I mean, that's what Saban did, but you decide to bring in 3 former Division I head coaches. It takes a lot to step down from being the head guy at a Division I school to come and be an assistant coach elsewhere. But so I think there's probably 2 or 3 places that coaches would probably consider dropping a head coach position to go be an assistant coach elsewhere. And I think Alabama's obviously one of those schools. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, after assembling his first staff, the second order of business, of course, and this starts day one, probably minute one, is recruiting. And anymore with the transfer portal, one of the biggest parts of recruiting is keeping the players that you already have on the roster. And obviously, Alabama already had a ton of talent on the roster. There's going to be natural turnover. The portal is what it is. Coaching turnover is what it is. Players are going to leave every single year, no matter what level you're at, Alabama, Western Kentucky, or, Kennesaw State, the newest FBS member. I mean, we're going to have turnover every single year. So how do you think that Coach DeBoer did in his first, shortened recruiting cycle where he had to retain talent, keep people that were on the roster already, and then also attract talent to fill any gaps or holes that he may have had?
I think 2 of the biggest things, because that was obviously the question circulating every media outlet. It was, can he recruit? Can he recruit? Can he recruit? And, since this is not an SEC collab, I can talk a little trash about our in-state opponent. Auburn fans started going, he's just another Brian Harsin. He's from out west. He can't recruit. They're going to call him Husky Harsin. That's what they started calling him, was Husky Harsin, because obviously his former team were the Huskies, and he said he's going to be Husky Harsin. He said he ain't going to be able to recruit the South. He said he doesn't know about the SEC. It's going to eat him alive. I feel the 2 biggest things he did, because the biggest things I knew when Saban retired, we were going to have guys at the portal, because I reached out to some of my inside sources and I said, what do you hear? He says, get ready for the exodus. He says, there's a lot of guys getting ready to jump ship. And I'm like, I'm upset at first, but then I'm like, if you're going to jump ship and not give a guy a chance, I said, do we really want you? Like, yeah, you're talented, but if you're going to sell your team out, then honestly, I don't want you. So when we lost some guys like that, especially, Caleb Downs was the biggest one that I probably had to say was that. But, Isaiah Bond, Trey Amos, just some other guys, Kendrick Blackshear, several guys. But I think when DeBoer came in, he said after his introductory press conference, he went straight to the coaching staff and he said, especially Freddie Roach and Gillespie, and said, we got to get on the road starting now. And they got on the road, and, we had 13 guys committed for the class of 2025. We got all the way down to 2, and, all the guys kind of jumped ship there. Fair enough. They wanted to see what the new coaching staff was. I feel like when he got on the road, then all of a sudden we started seeing the recruits stack up on here. Then, goes and lands Keelan Russell, a 5-star quarterback, goes and lands Caleb Cunningham, 5-star wide receiver, Ty Haywood, 5-star, Duke Johnson, 5-star, re-recruits. I feel like his 2 biggest recruiting wins that really showed what he could do with the staff is he re-recruited Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams, obviously 5-star, committed to us while Saban was there. The day Saban hung it up, he decommitted, took a visit to Auburn. Everybody said, oh, he's going to Auburn. It's a lock. And when he showed up at Alabama on a Monday night, he wasn't scheduled to come in until the following Friday. He showed up on a Monday night just unannounced to a team meeting. Just showed up. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty interesting. Then his visit was that weekend. Well, his LSU visit was supposed to be Tuesday, Wednesday. The snowstorm kept him from going to Baton Rouge. So he stayed in Tuscaloosa Monday, Tuesday, and then ended up coming back on that Friday. And then shortly after that, cancels his Auburn visit. And I'm like, cancels his Texas visit. And I'm like, okay. And then Jalen Mbakwe, a current defensive back on our roster who was good friends with him, who's also a true freshman, went on his Instagram Live and said, he's a lock, Bama fans. And sure enough, 2 days later, he recommits to Alabama. And then 3 days later, he shuts down his recruitment and says, I'm with the Tide. And I'm like, so that was big for me to get him to recommit. And then the saga of Caden Proctor. Proctor leaving Alabama to go back to Iowa, went back to Iowa, then a month in said, oh, crap, I made a mistake. And then I saw, I was like, this is weird because I saw on the day it says Caden Proctor is expected to enroll back at Alabama. And I'm like, huh? And saw his whole thing. And sure enough, he came back to Alabama. So really seeing those guys, and with just a recruiting class, we went from number 78 after Saban retired. Now we're back at 2. We have five stars in the class. So I think the guy can recruit, and everybody's saying, oh, he can't recruit the state of Alabama because he's got 2 players from Alabama and Hugh Freeze has got 8. I'm like, good for you. If you recruit the state of Alabama every year, fine. We're getting guys from these high-level top schools in California, Louisiana, Texas, Georgia, Florida. Those are our pipelines. They have been since Saban been there. So we have a joke every time we get a commit now on all the Twitter pages. All the Bama pages put out who we got, and we put it doesn't count because he's not from the state of Alabama. So, but yeah, I'm excited about what he's doing recruiting wise, and I think it's going to continue. So.
All right, so we got your thoughts on the coaching staff and the recruiting. What is your expectations for Alabama in 2024?
So, of course, we have our diehard fans. I am one. But the older I've gotten, especially now having a podcast and a page, I do try to be very realistic and obviously don't, I say this jokingly halfway, but serious in some ways. A lot of the Georgia fans every year now think that they're going to be 16-0 every year just because, and Georgia's good. And, Clemson fans still think that. Tennessee fans think it's their year every year. Texas thinks they're back every year. So, I mean, it's the same thing. You have your fans like that, but then you have your realistic fans who say, we could lose a game or two, or, hey, we may not win this game, or we may not be as good up front this year. So going into the spring, I was optimistic, of course. I felt like the new energy, this new era, fresh start was good. We did retain a lot of talent, and to kind of piggyback, I didn't answer the latter part of that question, but the transfer portal additions that Kalen got, he really attacked the defensive back room in the portal. We got King Mack from Penn State, Deshaun Jones from Wake Forest, Cam Howard from Charlotte. Obviously, I already had Domani Jackson and Keon Sapp. He got Keon Sapp from Michigan, really big get. You already had guys like Malachi Moore and Devontae Smith. Saban recruited Jalen Mbakwe, Xavier Brown, and Xavier Mincy, 3 5-stars in the class. So to really beef up that secondary room that was really kind of really picked apart in the portal when Saban left. But as far as the outlook, I was excited about the offense and the defense. Obviously, I was concerned about the secondary just because of the youth. We have raw talent, but it was the youth. And obviously, any change, you're going to be concerned. But after the spring and the summer and really seeing what's happened in fall camp, I'm even more optimistic. But obviously, this year, got to play Georgia, got to go to Wisconsin early in the season. That's going to be interesting. Got to go to LSU, to Tennessee, to Oklahoma. We still have Auburn. We don't have Texas A&M, Ole Miss, or Mississippi State this year, which is odd. But, still got to play South Carolina and Missouri, 2 teams that, could sneak up on you. It's definitely going to be an interesting year and the schedule's not any easier than it has been. But I feel like the talent that we retained and brought in is enough to weather the storm on that. The offensive side, I think, is going to be very it's going to be very quick. It's going to be very fast. We got a lot of speed on that side of the ball. We obviously have Jalen back. I think Jalen's going to make a huge improvement this year. The running back room, I feel like, is underrated. Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, Richard Young, you got a lot of talent in that room. The wide receiver room, I think, is being underappreciated by the rest of the media. The speed we have there, the talent we have there, the offensive line is going to be better. My one concern going into the season is going to be the defensive backfield just because of the youth that we have. And we do have good veteran guys, but the guys behind them, we got to have good guys that can come in and rotate. I think our front's going to be strong, but expectations for the year, I mean, there are probably 2 or 3 games that we could lose this season. But I say this every year, it all depends on us. It all depends on how we play, how we prepare, what we do. So we know we're still going to be circled on everybody's calendar. You're getting a shot at Bama just because Saban isn't there anymore. You still want a shot at Bama. So other than that, the outlook is very optimistic. I'm excited to see what he does. I'm not going to panic if we lose 3 games this year. I've predicted us to go 10-2 and still make the playoffs. I'm fine with that. I think that's a good season. But all these people saying, "Oh, Bama's," I saw a thing on College Football Unfiltered Instagram page. He picked the SEC order of finish, and he had Alabama at 6-6 this year. And I'm like, okay, that's the interesting one. Then I saw another guy who had us at 4-8. I'm like, do you think we hired Mike Shula again? I'm like, do you think we're back to those days? uh, but yeah, and those are your people that just hate Alabama. I mean, one guy who was a Florida fan has Georgia going 3-9. So I mean, it's just those type of fans who aren't realistic and they're just completely biased to their team. I mean, had Florida going 16-0. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So this next part, as we start to segue into some of the specific players we need to look out for, we're really going to lean heavily on your knowledge of this team, this roster, because in general, when we're preparing for the season, we lean heavily on the Field Steel magazine. It's kind of our guide for who's returning, players brought in, depth chart, etc. But with an off season like Alabama's had, with so much turnover, just with new staff, new players, portal is what it is every single year. But I think you're going to probably be a lot more knowledgeable in this area. If you had to highlight 3 offensive players for Alabama that WKU fans need to be aware of, you've already talked about a few, just kind of glossing over quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. If you had to pick out 3 offensive players that WKU fans need to be aware of, who would you say, hey, guys, circle these guys when they're on the field, know where they're at all times? Who would those guys be?
So one, I think the obvious elephant in the room is our quarterback, Jalen Milroe. I mean, I don't think you can. I think really teams' whole game plan is kind of centered around him and what he can do with his legs. And now in this type of offense in the offseason, he's had to improve. And hearing how he's improved, I think with his arm and the short to intermediate passes, how he's improved with his throwing motion. I think you have to look out for him because, as a defense, you have to look out and say, okay, he's a better passer this year, but let's not forget he can take off too. He's very agile. He's quick. He can step up in the pocket. And if he sees an opening, he's going to take off. That's his strength. So Jalen's obviously 1. 2, I feel like you could really kind of rotate anybody in our backfield, but Justice Haynes is a guy to really circle as well because hard runner, true freshman last year. I said this on my end of the season show last year after we lost in the semifinal, but we ran Justice Haynes in the third quarter, starting off on our first drive like 7 straight times, and the dude just kept getting positive yards, and then we never ran him the rest of the game. I'm like, why did we stop? I mean, the guy was guy had 7 carries for like 63 yards on one drive, and then we just stop all of a sudden. I'm like, why not feed the hot hand? The guy didn't want to come out. But Justice Haynes, a guy who, stayed on board with the transition. A lot of guys were worried he was going to transfer. Obviously Georgia legacy. His dad played in the 80s at Georgia, shocked everybody when he came to Bama. So the fact that he stayed on, really anchoring the backfield, has gotten quicker, super strong guy, super quick feet. So I feel like he's one. And I could list probably about 5 or 6 wide receivers, but if I had to highlight really any of them, this one's hard. I would have to say probably Kendrick Law. Kendrick Law, another guy, he's now a rising junior from Shreveport, Louisiana, committed to us 2 years ago over LSU and Clemson and Ohio State. Really fast guy, was used kind of like in a Deebo Samuel type role this year, I can see. Split out kind of in the backfield, can take handoffs, can take jet sweeps, but can also really burn you over the middle too in the slot. So really those 3 I would highlight. But, like I said, especially in the wide receiver area, I could highlight, Kobe Prentice, Ryan Williams, Caleb Odom, Jeremy Bernard. I could highlight a lot of those guys, Emmanuel Henderson. A lot of those guys I could highlight, but I think Kendrick for now is really going to be kind of a guy that I think everybody needs to watch out for.
Well, I mean that. I always knew Jalen Milroe. You had to look out for him because just watching him play the last few years. Now moving on to the other side of the ball. What's 3 defensive players that WKU fans should know about?
So on the defensive side of the ball, like I said, still got a lot of talent. I think this season on the defensive side, I think you got to start out with our guy in the middle. I think you got to start out with our Mike linebacker. That would be either Jihad Campbell or Deontay Lawson. They're each going to be signal callers, but Lawson, obviously, redshirt junior, has been there for 4 years, has started. Last year was his 4 years as a starter. The previous year in 22, he came in and started the last 7 games of the season, really stepped into that role, and is an Alabama native. He's from Mobile. Has slimmed down some this year. Will be the first Alabama player ever. This is a little quick fact. First Alabama player ever to wear the jersey 0. It'll be the first person we ever have wearing the number 0. But obviously, good signal caller, really kind of the alpha of the defense. He and Jihad both are going to be calling the defense, which is a good thing to have. But I think definitely Deontay Lawson is one. Then going to the front, I feel like this year a guy you need to watch out for will be number 4, Quay Rusall. He is a redshirt freshman, was a 5-star out of Carver last year. Guy's super quick off the ball. He's going to be playing the wolf position for us, so he is primarily going to be getting after the quarterback. Super quick off the line, has really quick hands, but it's just kind of I like to call him a heat seeker because whenever he goes after – if you watch his high school highlights, whenever he goes after any of the ball carriers, he's straight to them in a matter of seconds. He just attacks the ball relentlessly. So I think he's one to watch. And then in the secondary, I feel like obviously Malachi Moore. You've got to go with the veteran. In his graduate year, in his 5th year, came in 2020, has been a part of 3 SEC championship teams. 1 national title team, has been to the national title twice. Played a lot of high-level football. Kind of had an up-and-down career because of injuries, but this year slimmed down some, has gotten really, really shredded, in my opinion. Football IQ is through the roof, can play corner, husky, rover, free safety, strong safety, really versatile player. Felt like him coming back was not only a good thing for the defense, but a good thing for his draft stock as well. You had a really heavy safety cornerback class this past year in the draft, and this year not so much. So he actually did himself a favor, I think. But those are really 3 that I could highlight, and we got a couple more on the front I could, but I think those 3, I think those 3 for sure I could highlight.
All right, Alex, I'm going to ask you to just do me a favor here. Give me a little bit of mercy. Don't answer this question by saying they need to get out of bed and get off the bus. What would be your keys to victory for Alabama? What does Alabama need to do? Maybe 3 things they have to do to win this ball game in the first game of the Kalen DeBoer era versus Western Kentucky.
Well, as we alluded to on the show the other night, we talked about, Western Kentucky's passing offense is not a joke by any means, and it doesn't need to be taken lightly. I mean, obviously, for the last 5 years, y'all have led the FBS in total passing yards. I mean, and I feel like that goes overlooked, and it shouldn't, because I don't care who you are, that's impressive. I don't care if you're Kennesaw State. I don't care if you're Ohio State. It's impressive if you lead the entire country in passing yards. And, you had Bailey Zappi a few years ago, and, obviously dude was incredible. But I think the first thing is, you got to limit the big plays of Western Kentucky, because obviously y'all got some good receivers. TJ Finley will be your starting quarterback this game. They announced that today, I saw. So obviously this guy's had experience against Alabama. He's played against us twice. I mean, at the end of the day, the guy is tall. I mean, the guy's 6'7". I mean, and has really got some strength. He's hard to bring down. And really improved last year at Texas State. Again, it doesn't matter if it's a smaller school, but went back there and now he's back to the ranks of a bigger school. So I feel like the first thing is we got to limit the big plays of Western Kentucky, because good tailbacks y'all do have. I mean, a pretty decent offensive line as well. Y'all got a lot of key pieces on that side back, but y'all have those big physical receivers as well. I think it'll be a good first test for our young but talented secondary. But I think it's going to be a test for them. How can they do in the first game? They're going to want to come out and perform. So I feel like that's one. Two, I think is it doesn't matter the team you're playing, Western Kentucky, Kennesaw State, Ohio State. You can't get complacent in any game. Like if you're up by 28 or you're up 28-14, 28-7, you don't need to just coast after that. I don't feel like we need to have a coasting feature. I need to feel like we need to keep our foot on the gas the entire game, and not play what the scoreboard says. We need to play until we like all the way from kickoff until that horn sounds at the end. We need to play all the way through and just really start that. And then I would say the third one is probably, we need to start quick. We need to prove that, and this is kind of not a key. This is kind of a preference. I wouldn't show too much because it's your season opener, but you aren't playing Georgia yet. You're not playing LSU yet. You're not playing Tennessee yet. I wouldn't unravel your full playbook, and I don't think they have a plan to. But I would just say, try to keep, the game in your grasp, and I would just say, other than that, don't get complacent. Start quick, and I would say limit, and if you can, limit the big plays, because I know there's going to be some big plays in this game because these are two good offenses, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I had to agree with you on that. Hopefully, our offense, comes to play and is able to ball out. Maybe some ESPN top 10 plays of the day. That's what I'm hoping for. But for the Hilltoppers that are making the trip down there, what's some spots they need to check out? It could be food recommendations, campus spots, or tailgating areas.
So, okay, I'll start with places to eat. If you're going to go there is a place called Dreamland Barbecue. Really good place there in Tuscaloosa. Has some really good barbecue, pulled pork, ribs, chicken wings, anything. They also have a place called Bob Baumhauer's. He played at Alabama back in the 70s. He owns a chain of restaurants all the way through the state of Alabama. Really good burgers, wings, fries, anything you can imagine. There's also on the campus as well, if they have a chance, obviously, usually the visiting team gets out or off of their bus on the west side of the stadium. There's usually a place where they park their equipment trucks and everything, and they usually get out over there to go on their side. But at the north end of the stadium, there are 5 statues along the north side of the stadium of all 5 Alabama coaches who have won a championship at Alabama. And it starts with the first one's Wallace Wade, and then 2 is Frank Thomas, 3 is Coach Bryant, 4 is Gene Stallings, and obviously the 5th is Nick Saban. So a lot of people, I see a lot of opposing fans going to take their picture by the Saban statue or the Bryant statue. But then 2.5 hours now prior to kickoff, there is a Walk of Champions that goes into the stadium. And now the walk that the players get off of the bus at, for us, goes straight into their locker room now with the LED tunnel. But on that walk, there's all of the plaques of all 18 SEC championships. And then on the outer, there are all 30 SEC championship plaques that says who was on the team, who the coaches were, the record, the captains, and the year. So that's a good thing to see. If they want to go to the Chimes, it's you really can't miss it. It's a very tall structure in the middle of the quad. All the handprints and the footprints of every Alabama captain are there, and it says the year that they are. So those are some good ones to do. And tailgating spots, just go to the quad. There's a lot of tents there, a lot of good food. The Superstore is there with all the Alabama apparel. Really on kind of the north side of the stadium and everything like that. And the south side, there's some good tailgating areas and some tent vendors there as well. But yeah, those are some great things to see. And like I said, the team gets off the bus about 2.5 hours prior. And all the times I've been a lot since 2011, really. I see some opposing fans slip in there to see the Alabama guys come off of the bus. So I'm like, and they try to hide behind stuff and they hide behind their posters or whatever. But yeah.
No, best believe I just took notes on every single one of those recommendations because I'm planning on making the trip, heading up early Saturday morning. Luckily it's an evening kickoff, so I'll have plenty of time to get down there, check out some spots. First order of business is going to be find some food, and then we're going to go hit some tailgating spots. So selfishly, I included that question in there. Actually, it's a question I ask all of our collaborations. If it's a away game, where should we go check out? But it's been a few years. It's been since 2016 since we were last down there. So I had to get some updated recommendations as well. So I hope anyone listening on the Hilltopper side of things hopefully appreciates that and checks out some of those recommendations, because a couple of those I have checked out. Some of them I haven't checked out the others. So hopefully with a little bit more time, I'm planning on getting down there down there around 1 p.m. Get a good chance to walk around and see some of those things. So I do appreciate that, Alex. Now, again, I'm going to ask you to humor me with your answer. I already heard your answer on your podcast side of this things, but how do you see this game playing out, and give us a score prediction for game one of the Kalen DeBoer era?
So overall, obviously, I think they're going to want to show out and try to keep this game clean. I mean, obviously, limit the penalties. You don't want to come out, first game of the era, have a lot of penalties, or you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot with turnovers. So, got to keep the turnovers to a minimum. Got to force some turnovers. I feel like obviously Western Kentucky is a very worthy opponent to open up with. Obviously last year, obviously winning their bowl game over Old Dominion, having a pretty good year, and obviously still leading the country in passing yards again. Having TJ Finley, having some of the talent that they kept back, is going to be very interesting. I feel like first part of the game could be very competitive. It's going to be very physical. I think there's going to be a lot of hard hits in this game from each side. I do, however, feel like probably second half or so, strength and conditioning will come into play. The hot Alabama weather will come into play, even in the evening. And unfortunately, like just in a game like this, usually I think talent starts to take over, and just which team has more and which team has more of the depth. So I think at the end of the day, still very worthy opponent to play first game. I always say this on all my podcasts. I said I don't care if we're playing a high school. I don't ever consider a game a cupcake game. I don't ever consider it automatic win, because anybody can beat anybody on any Saturday. That's the beauty of college sports. So I would just say probably I'm going to give it like a 38, 21 game, in favor of Alabama. Like I said, the only reason I don't put it really high scoring on Alabama side is because I don't feel like they're going to open up the playbook a lot. I feel like they're going to try to save that to when they get to the meat of their schedule and really going to start opening up their offense. So they can really kind of get out of there with 38 points, 35 to 38 points, without really expanding the playbook. I think it'll be a good day. But I do think Western Kentucky is going to score points.
So we're looking forward to it. I think we have the offense to score some points. I think it's interesting that you said, keeping it close to half, and then in the second half, the depth and the talent and conditioning, et cetera, starts to show its head, because I was on an episode of our CUSA Roundtable podcast earlier, and we were just going over our week 1 and week 2 games, and that's almost verbatim what I said. If we can keep the game close to halftime, I don't want to say it's a moral victory, but it's one of those things where in that second half, the depth of Alabama, where they're rotating in more 4-star players, more 5-star players, that depth, that conditioning, that talent really is going to start to separate the game. And while I want to be competitive, I want to win the ball game. Quite frankly, I'm coming down there to win. But realistically, like you talked about earlier, as a realistic fan, at the end of the day, I want to get out of there healthy. I want to have a fun time in Tuscaloosa, tailgating, just checking out campus, checking out your recommendations, etc. So I'm kind of right there with you. I really think this Alabama team is still solid. New era of a head coach, still so much talent on this team. But I don't know. My score prediction is a little higher. I'm not going to expose it yet. Me and Tyler talk about that here shortly. But I do think Alabama wins convincingly. You have them winning by 2 touchdowns plus. So I definitely think that's possible. I think they may score more points, because I think Kalen DeBoer may want to put on a little bit of an offensive show, even without showing his hand too much for the future non-conference games before he even gets into SEC play. But Alex, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your knowledge with us about Alabama football. Before we let you go, go ahead and plug, your socials, where people can find you and your work. As I've got to talk to you over the last several months and kind of putting this collaboration together, I've really got to enjoy following you, seeing some of your graphics and, what you're doing on Instagram, TikTok, and now on Twitter. So tell the people, WKU fans especially, where they can find you and check out some of your content heading into this game.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously you can find me on our main one, Instagram, the.bama.factor, and then on all other platforms. Obviously on YouTube, it's just the Bama Factor, no underscores or periods, and on Twitter and TikTok, it's just the underscore Bama underscore Factor as well. So they can find all the graphics. They can find all my episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcast as well. I'm also on iHeart. I'm also on iHeart Music and Amazon Music as well. Kind of expanded those. Don't really look a lot into those because I have a lot of people who are like, we just listen to Spotify and Apple. I'm like, but for the people who have like the Androids and they're on the other thing, they're on the other ones. Instagram is where I spend the majority of my time. I do a lot of lives there. Obviously, I post highlights there each week. All the game day graphics, all my keys to the game. After the game, I usually do a graphic on my thoughts of the game. I compose my thoughts, put them into 10 points of what I thought of the game, and kind of what we need to do the week after that. Then obviously, I'm always posting all the links to all of my shows. I try to record on Wednesday. It goes live on Thursday. So I'm probably going to move that back one day this year. So going to record on Tuesdays and it go live on Wednesday. That way it'll be a halfway point of the week so people can listen to that prior to game day. So it's not towards the end of the week. But yeah, that's where everybody can. That's where everybody can locate me for that. I am pretty responsive in the DM. So anybody ever wants to shoot me one, talk ball or anything like that, I usually respond pretty quickly if I can. So.
Yeah, appreciate that, Alex, man. Appreciate your knowledge and coming on. And obviously, we might not see you down in Tuscaloosa, but maybe we'll see you after the game to recap it. And appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge with us, man.
Yes, I appreciate y'all as well. And obviously, y'all have a safe trip for whoever obviously comes to whoever comes to Tuscaloosa. We're obviously happy to have y'all there. Hope y'all have a good experience. Obviously, I say this on a couple of the collabs I've been. Any of the obnoxious Alabama fans that you come across, that's not who I am, but every school has them. So, but just from personal experience of going there for so long, the majority of our fan base is very welcoming to the other side. They have that, but it's usually your frat guys and all of your college kids that are talking trash to each other. But your older people, they're pretty respectful of people. I mean, hey, we tailgated with some LSU people when they came down there in the Tiger Bus a few years ago. Like they invited us up and said, "Come on up here, man." Like they were just in Tuscaloosa and they said, "Y'all come on up here." I said, "Y'all do know we're Alabama fans?" He said, "Yeah, we don't care. Come on." I'm like, "Oh, well, all right." I took some pictures with some Penn State guys there from like 2010, and yeah, I mean, just all good competitive. It's just a good competitive game. It's just people enjoying the sport. So.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate your time, and you definitely have a good night. We'll talk to you after the game for sure. We'll recap it and see how it went, man. Appreciate you, and go Tops, Tyler.
Go Tops, boy.
Yeah, I say roll tide to that one.
Man, awesome interview. Great insight from Alex there at the Bama Factor. Really enjoy what he does over there. Again, fellow member of the College Huddle, just a huge network of podcasts that we mention every day, every time we record in our intro. Great for collaborations, and he does a good job over there. We got to appear on his podcast, did a WKU preview for him. And obviously glad he could return that favor and join us and just talk about the Crimson Tide and just what to expect from Alabama, especially with all the offseason changes that they've had. And just, he's going to have better insight and just knowledge about that team than we ever could. Even reading Phil Steele and who's the expected starters and knowing what the spread is, it's nice to have an insider to come talk about their team and just let us know, what to expect. So really great interview, and obviously looking forward to a lot more collaborations, thanks to our relationship and membership in the College Huddle. I think that's going to be a good piece for our game previews going forward, that we're going to have just a lot more insight about every team that we play, especially we're in these out of conference games. We're playing teams for, the first time, some we've never played before. So, that insight is just going to be invaluable in letting us and the fans know, what to expect and who to look out for, and, just what that team's true expectations are for the upcoming season. So, Tyler, man, let's jump into some keys to victory, as we always do when we preview these games. What we got to talk about, what does WKU have to do to win this game as a just a major underdog. That's not a secret. So what's your first key to victory versus Alabama?
I want to say capitalize on Bama's mistakes. Granted, this ain't Saban's team, and this is a guy that came from Washington, from that Pac-12, where the defense ain't really known for something for them. So maybe, hey, he's going to take a season to get used to that. I hope so. But definitely got to capitalize on their mistakes. Last year, this team could be rusty. So if they end up coughing it up a little bit, maybe come down with an interception for the Western comes down with an interception, and we got to make sure they somehow don't get lucky and keep the ball. We got to be sure we get the turnovers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with win that turnover battle. Kind of like you just said. We can't go into Tuscaloosa, for a night game on ESPN1, and we can't turn the ball over, 3-4 times till there's 0. We have to take care of the ball. Not throw dumb interceptions. Cough the ball up, fumble it, turn the ball over, give them the ball back quickly. Potentially on a short field, and just have an easy opportunity to score again and keep our defense out there and get tired. We have to take care of the ball. We have to force some turnovers. Quite frankly, we need to be plus in that category. We need to be taking the ball away, swarming to the ball, punching it out. Defensive backs making plays. We just have to do that, even if some of it is getting a lucky bounce here or there, and call or whatever going our way. Unlikely being a visiting road team and a top 5 team, but we've got to control what we can control. And if we can go create some turnovers, that's really going to help our bid and our hopes to pull off an upset. Tyler, what's your second key to victory?
Keep their playmakers in front of us. Last year when we went up there and played Ohio State, we let their receivers get behind us. Ohio State, they're bringing in their fourth. Kobe Prentice is their fourth receiver. He's their leading receiver, is coming back with 18 receptions, 314 yards. I'm sure they probably got some transfers that came in, but hopefully, to win, we had to definitely keep them in front of us. We can't let them get behind us. Can't let them get the easy touchdown passes.
Yeah, I'm going to go with get off the field on third down. And that's, kind of one of those things that against a team like Alabama with the roster they have and the talent, skill, and depth that they have, that's going to be easier said than done. And at times it was an Achilles heel of ours last year, was getting off the field on third down. But we have to keep them behind the chain, so to speak. We can't be giving them 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 1, every time they get to that position. We need them 3 in mid or 3 and long to just make it a more difficult conversion. And obviously we want to get them off the field, get the ball back to our offense, and just see what happens. But, it all starts with getting their offense off the field. They can't, generally can't score points as easily if their offense isn't on the field and ours is on the field. Again, just kind of playing the long game, making the game shorter, less possessions for them is going to just increase our chances to have a chance to pull the upset. So, Tyler, what's your third key to victory?
Attack multiple ways. We can't be one-dimensional on offense in this game. We're going to have to get the running game going. If the last few years, offenses the Russian attack has kind of been our Achilles heel, and teams kind of don't take it serious. We definitely need it to come out and make a statement. We need an Ace Wales type game from our running backs, and hopefully, it will keep Alabama's defense up on their toes instead of just sitting back and getting comfortable.
Yeah, I'm going to go with one that kind of cliche, kind of obvious, but score points. Quite frankly, if we want to have any chance of pulling an upset off, it's probably not going to be a shootout. It's not going to be a 67-66 type game. It's probably going to be like a 21-20 type game or 24-21 type game. So, If we win, if we were to pull an upset, it's going to be a close, tightly contested game where points are going to be at a premium. If you get down to the other side of the 50 and you get to field goal range, we need to make that field goal. If we can get in the end zone and get 6, obviously that's better. But every point that we can get is going to better our chance to even having, that 2.6% chance of pulling that upset. So we've got to score points, man. That's what it's all about. At the end of the day, if we win by 1, I think all of Hilltopper Nation is going to be happy. That's what it's all about. So sounds easy, sounds cliche, sounds whatever it is, but we need to go and score points against Alabama and just prove that we can get that victory. And that, starts on the field. We got to go play that game. Now, Tyler, let's jump into our NVT. That's the most valuable Hilltopper in this game. Who have you got penciled in as your first MVT of this season?
Well, it's not a person, it's a position, because we don't know exactly who's going to be the name. We have an idea, but I will not say it until it's finally came out, and that's going to be the QB for the Hilltoppers. We're going to need a field general who can go out there, calm the offense down, because you're playing in Tuscaloosa. It is arguably one of the biggest stages in college football. And the fans are going to be loud. Fans are going to be obnoxious, but we're going to have to he's going to have to get the guys under control and be under control himself and make smart, good plays and passes.
Well, you won't say the name, but I'll say the name. TJ Finley is going to start this game. TJ Finley has SEC experience, has quite a resume with how he played last year, helped his team be competitive last year and win some big games. So I'm going to put it out there. It's TJ Finley. If we're going to have a chance of winning and pulling off this upset, we need this guy to come in and just be that leader. We know, he has a big arm. He's athletic. He can run the ball. Alabama's not going to see many 6'7" quarterbacks on the other side of the line from them. So big boy, whether it's him or Caden, obviously 6'6" Caden, it's going to be one of those two guys. But I think, the worst kept secret, like I said earlier in Bowling Green, is that it is likely going to be TJ Finley trotting out there. Maybe we don't hear that till the morning of the game. We know when that depth chart comes out, there's just going to be a lot of oars on there. Caden or TJ, running back, wide receiver. There's, alphabetically listed for whatever reason that Coach Helton does that. But, I think it's going to be on the shoulders and arm of our quarterback, the starting quarterback, who I don't see any way it's not TJ Finley at this point. If we're going to win, it's going to have to be on the back of a stellar effort from QB1. So give me TJ Finley. We need him to go out and throw 300 passing yards, 3-4 touchdowns if possible would be great. But that's who I've got. Tyler, what about your score prediction versus Alabama?
I'm going to go with the score prediction that I put in previous episode. I'm going to say 52-30. I had a friend tell me I was crazy saying we ain't going to put up 30 points on Alabama. May not, but I think the offense, if it's kicking in full gear, both teams going to be kind of rusty. I got my red glasses on, red as hell. I'm going to roll with it, 52-30.
Hey, look,
Alabama wins.
Yeah, if we go to Alabama, we score 30 points. I'll feel pretty good about it. I mean, we went down there in 2016 with a pretty good offense, Mike White and Taywan Taylor, and scored 10. And that was an early field goal, and then that was a late touchdown throw in garbage time from Drew Eccles to, at the time, freshman Lucky Jackson in 2016. So, if we go and score 30 points, I think a lot of Hilltopper Nation, even in defeat, if that's a moral victory, I guess, if you want to call it, I'd be pretty happy with what the rest of the season may hold. But my prediction is not quite as lean as yours. It's still an Alabama victory. It's a Hilltopper loss, however you want to look at that. But I have Alabama scoring 42 points in the Kalen DeBoer era being kicked off his first game. I think he's going to want to put on a little bit of a show, shiny new toy. and just prove to that fan base, like, hey, I'm here. We're going to have a good offense and we're going to score points and win games convincingly. So I've got Alabama 42, Western Kentucky 17, unfortunately in defeat, but scoring some points, though, hopefully maybe keeping it, close and competitive through that first half. And then, a lot of times after half is kind of when we see that depth and that talent just, they start to wear you down and start to pull away. Kind of how I see this game going. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm just glad that, football's finally here. We're officially, we're by this point next week, we'll know who's going to win. It won't be predictions anymore. We'll be on Twitter and social media and message boards and whatever and group text, talking about either a insane victory or just unfortunately a defeat from Alabama. But I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously this summer, just talking all the position groups, getting ready, breaking those down, talking about every player. Then the schedule, talking about the season prediction and previews, man. It's all for this moment here, for getting ready for game one. We want Bama, roll tops on top. Give me all the hashtags, all the slogan, because now it's here. We've got players that, this is why they lace them up. They want to play the best. They want to have opportunities to go to the NFL or go pro, wherever that is, after college. Well, it's going to start with games like Alabama, because when you're getting, looked at for those evaluations for potential, draft stock or whatever it is, they're gonna look at your Conference USA games, but they're gonna want to see how you played against some big boys. And how you play against an Alabama, hold your own there, have a good game there is really going to put yourself either in a good and better position for draft potential, or, may drag you down and say, well, I don't know, couldn't hold his own there. Not sure what we can expect if those caliber of athletes are on the field every week in the pros. So, let's go out, let's have a good game. I think we have 1.9 million reasons to be happy to make that trip and, go collect a check from Alabama. But hey, why not give them a little bit of upset while we're there? Who knows? It can happen. But at the end of the day, I want to go and enjoy that environment. It's going to be a fun trip, fun game. And I want our team to get out of there, with the win if possible, but just healthy, and then start getting ready for week 2 versus EKU. Can't wait to recap this game. Win, lose, or draw. I'm just glad football's back. We've been talking about it all summer, getting ready for it. Now it is officially here. Tyler, man, hit us with your final words for this Alabama game week and take us on out of here.
You're right. And it is a very exciting time. Today, SMU lost me some money. So I kind of hate them. Georgia Tech, you went out there, did your thing. FSU, suck, I guess. It is what it is. But I'm been looking forward to this game. I think this Kalen DeBoer, I think he could be a good hire for Alabama. Of course, that's to take that for what it's worth. But I'm excited for this upcoming football season, and the most important thing is to get out healthy, because week 2 versus EKU, and we may lose this game. We got the rest of the season ahead of us. So go in there, play hard, play clean, stay healthy, get out, win or lose, and collect that money and show me the door. But I do want to say one more thing about being a father. The first night we had Reed home, I don't think I ever couldn't sleep. I didn't sleep much that night. I always went his little bassinet's in the room. So I kept going over there and sticking my hand on his chest just to make sure he was still breathing, because we didn't have that little dream sock, the outlet dream sock on him. So I was scared to death, because I was like, oh, buddy. Because, he was sleeping with his hands up, and I was like, you alive, bro? And I go there, I stick my hand on his chest, and I feel his little chest. I'd be like, all right. So I'd walk back to the room. I'd walk back to the bed, shoot straight back up, and be like, you sure? and I'd feel again. I'd be like, all right, he good. But nah, very very exciting thing, and it's just awesome to see him. I kind of like this fatherhood thing. It's awesome, man.
It
But
looks good. It looks good on you, buddy.
man, thank you. I have put on some weight. I have put on some weight. But the boy he came out weighing 10 pounds, 22 inches long. Big boy. He's got some strong legs on him. I'm thinking definitely defensive, offensive line, maybe at the least. If he ain't tall, put him back as running back, and let him eat, because he is going to run. It could be a little bowling ball run through there. I don't know, but I will say you was talking about TJ Finley before. Him being number one, he's 6'7", 260 pounds. Boy is a tight end back there. Boy's I still remember seeing him before the basketball game, me and you, and you was like, that's TJ. I was like, that's a QB. I was like, I didn't know they made QBs that tall. But dude is big. I'm excited to see him go out there, because you're right. We are going to have some SEC experience. He's been with two teams in the SEC. I think they actually went in, and when he played for Auburn, that was a pretty close game he played in versus Alabama that season, I believe. So I mean, he knows what it takes to beat them, and he knows what they do. So I think if he is under center, which more than likely going to be, I think I do like Western's chances to put up some points. Because I feel like our receivers and skill position is going to be there. It's going to be good, and I just feel like this could be a good game for WKU. But it's never a bad game when you're getting paid for it. So with that, I will say, Moff, week 0's in the book. Week 1 coming up. Who has it better than us?
Nobody, buddy. You know it. Go Tops.
No, go Tops.
Later, guys.
See you.